Alrighty. Well, it's a few mornings after. We've been doing some other stuff, did a massive cleaning of the shop, and it's time to put this front runner system on. So let's start with that. Alright, step one is always open up your bag with your instructions, go through your instructions, but I've done so many of these, so I'm going to skip that part. But you guys, definitely open that up. Get your checklist, make sure you have all your parts and this and that. So, where I'm going to start is, if all my accessories were on here, I would take those off. They're obviously not, but we are going to pull off the water pump, and we're going to pull off the crank pulley. Okay, crank pulley. You need a puller. You're not pulling this thing off, it's press fit. This is my puller of choice. It's a Mac Tools. I believe it's actually a Chrysler puller, but it works perfect for these. Here's your number, HDPP9740B. I love this thing. I've had it for years, got a decade at least, and it works perfectly. So I'm going to set this up to pull this thing off, and then we're going to pull it off. All right, we are on. We should be ready to just zip this thing off. And there we go. Alright, next up, so we're going to take our LT water pump and gasket, and we're going to bolt her onto here. Going to put a light skim of silicone on both sides of this gasket, and they give you all your bolts in here for this entire kit, including the ones for this water pump. Alright, silicone is on there. Going to get the right orientation for the pump. Here we go. And we're on. Now I'm just going to throw my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bolts in it. Alright, so next up we're going to grab our water pump / mount assembly and bring it over here. And you have two different style bolts that are doing this. You have your normal 5 water pump bolts that are going to be these 3, these 2, and then they give you a shorter one that's going to go here. And that's all there is to that. Otherwise it bolts on just like a normal water pump. Alright, so same deal as a normal LS water pump. Skim coat the gaskets, put the bolts in, and you can kind of just walk it up over into here. I like to start on the easiest one to get to. I'm going to get an extension for that one. Alright. Gun on the lowest torque. Oh, that's reverse. All right, now I'll go get my ratchet and my 13 3/8 and finish tighten all these. All right, next up, we're going to put this crank pulley on. This is my crank pulley install kit. It's just one I got off of Amazon. It's an OEM products, 27306. It's a long reach kit. So that's what we got in here. So I'm going to set this all up and then we'll install this crank pulley. All right, here we go. We're all on there. Just going to say, because you've seen 1.5 million people do it, and I've done it too, is use the bolt to pull it in. Not the best thing in the world. Does it work in a pinch? Yeah. You could screw the threads up. Also, never hit it with a hammer, because you risk destroying your thrust surface on your thrust bearing. I will say I'm also guilty of that, but thankfully I have not damaged anything ever in my life. I might have to get the deeper socket. We'll see in a minute. I've got a little smear of grease on the inside and outside of this hub. It's just so it'll slide in better. Probably should turn the gun back up. No, we were able to tighten down before I ran out of my ability to tighten. All right. And with that, we are in. Just got to get my wrench to loosen that one out now. So I'm going to pull this out, put the stock crank pulley bolt in, and torque that to spec. All right, I'm going to clarify as well. And when I said put the stock bolt back in, I meant the new stock bolt. Old busted, new hotness. This is another sore subject where people are like, oh, you can use it multiple times, blah, blah, blah. And I'm not going to say I have. I'm also not going to say I haven't. But if they give you a new bolt, use the new bolt. All right, next up is your thermostat and water neck. And I remember now why they give you extra ones of these, because your extra two are to actually bolt this in. So this is basically factory stock. I believe it might even be factory location layout wise on the engine. Don't quote me on it, but you know, if I drop that bolt one more time, I might win the lottery, right? So we're just gonna throw her in there. Pick up that bolt I dropped 3 times. Throw that in there. All right. I'm gonna grab my wrench and finish snug these up. All right, next on the list is your heater hose fittings and block offs, and I'll show you where this little pipe plug goes as well. So stock area location, just like the LS factory crap, only you can do them here, or you have 2 holes underneath here as well. 100% dependent on your application, your chassis, all that stuff, where your lines are going. A lot of the trucks we build, we hide the lines. They come out of here and they run inside your fender well and then just barely peek out over here. This truck, they're actually coming out all right here. So I'm going to use these 2 lines and we're going to loop and come out and go straight into there. So we're going to put our block offs underneath and we're going to put our 2 main fittings here. You put these in just like you'd put in any other pipe fitting. Just put some Teflon tape on them and tighten them. They are in NPT fittings threads, so they will self-seal, but you still need to put a little bit of sealer around them. And that tiny little pipe plug, that's your steam port. So on the back of your mount bracket right there, we'll see if I can get you in a better look right here. There it is right there. So that steam port, if you so wish, you can connect into your factory steam ports. We're going to be getting rid of this setup and going with a different one. And 9 out of 10 times I opt not to use this unless you're using a 4-corner steam port kit that you can bring a line out into this, because this is such a tight area. It's hard to make that work. So we're going to use the pipe plug there. I'm going to get a different kit. Actually, I think we have multiple universal kits over there, which will bring it out over here, and they make a block that goes in your upper radiator hose with that fitting, so you just vent the air into there. It's the same exact thing as venting it in the back side of this. So that's how we're doing that. But you have the option of venting it through just like that, if so the plumbing will allow you. Also, you get a 5/8 hose barb and a 3/4 hose barb. The 5/8 will go in the back port. The 3/4 will go in the front port. Right, next up is our alternator, and that is held in by one socket head screw and one button head screw. The button head screw goes on the bottom here. It's a button head to give you more clearance for your power steering pulley when it's on here. So 8mm, 6mm. That's also why this is a short bolt here for clearance for the alternator, so we can tuck it in as tightly as possible in this form factor that they have. Alright, and get my ratchet and tighten these two down. Alright, next up is power steering pump, and there is just a tiny bit of assembly that you need to do beforehand, and that includes your line, banjo bolt seals, this 13mm bolt, and your banjo bolt. Alright, and to do this it's pretty simple, straightforward. This is an 8mm Allen. I'm going to throw a seal on. This banjo bolt, or this banjo assembly, goes on like so. So we'll throw on a seal on the other side. You're going to get this started. There we go. And this 13mm goes in the back to hold it right here. So you're going to tighten this all the way down, and then get it nice and snug, and then tighten this in. And I accidentally picked up, this is one of my power steering pump mount bolts. This is the bolt that's going to be holding this bracket in the back here. So you're going to tighten this down, get it good and snug by hand. So we're good right there. Then you can tighten this down, then you can finish tighten this down. Alright, power steering pump pulley. Now you can put this on before you mount the pump in the car, or you can put it on after. I like putting it on after, just because then your pump is rigidly mounted in the vehicle. Instructions tell you to put it on before, but that's a pain in the butt to try to get enough torque to push this thing down in there while it's just kind of loose on the bench here. So we're going to throw this in the mount bracket, and then we're going to install this pulley. Alright, your power steering pump, now that you have it all assembled. And remember, I love, absolutely love that it's a built-in 6AN fitting, but I wish they would give you a 6AN return, just so you could run AN fittings throughout the whole system. So it just literally places in here like so, and you get your bolts started. Let me find where my sweet spot is. Oh, might have to start up here. I can see that bolt. There we go. So we have one started. There it is. I had it kind of tweaked. We got two started. We have three started. So you get the ever so slight amount of adjustment here. I always put it down to this way just to give you better access to fill, because that cap is kind of close to there. Use your own discretion, do it however you want. That's just how I like to do it. And there's such a tight form factor fitting in here that there's always plenty of room on this side with everything. And done. Alright, next up, pulley installation. We're just going to set it on there for now. I'm going to break out my installation kit. This is the one I like using from Mac Tools. It's PSP KITA part number. It's just a weird part number. It doesn't have a single number in it. But I've used this one for years. It's been one of the nicer kits that I've had. And it's simple. It just works. So we're going to thread this into the power steering pump. And then I'm going to grab a 14 mil wrench and a 14 mil ratchet wrench, and the ratchet wrench will go on to here, and we'll just power this thing on. You want to get as much thread engagement into this power steering shaft, bottomed out good, as you can, so you don't pull any threads out of it. And the only other thing you'll have to do is hold, this is why it's so hard on a bench as well, because you have to hold this pulley, otherwise the whole shaft will spin even when you're tightening this, and sometimes it's just a major pain in the butt. So we are going to throw your ratchet wrench on in tightening mode. You're going to get it tightened up here, and you'll see how the whole thing turns instead. So I like to grab something soft like the rubber end of a hammer, put it through the spoke up to the bolt inside just to hold that, and then you can just push it right in. Just make sure that you pull out and adjust this as you go, because you can't, if you're going like this, you can wedge that in there and it will be stuck, and you'll have to pull the pulley back off. All right, and we're in. So you can back it off, take your stop out, and this will bottom out once you get on as far as it needs to be. And the other way you can verify if it is on all the way. So what am I doing this way for? Just put this on to break this loose. Oof, I tightened it a little too much apparently. There we go. Whew. You back this whole assembly off, remove it, and once I get this off, your shaft will be flush with the outside of your pulley. All right, next is your AC compressor. So this is going to mount like so. Make sure your discharge and intake ports are facing that way. What you're going to do, this bolt goes in from behind like so, and then this goes in like that, and then this assembly goes like this, and this bolt slides in. Now I will tell you, if you're using aftermarket valve covers, I say 60% of them get in the way of trying to get this bolt slid in, so you have to remove your valve cover. Factory valve covers, not an issue. So I will tighten these two down now, and then this section will be done. All right, we're nearing the end. Now we got to put our tensioner on. Nothing fancy or crazy here. It's just a tensioner. So you just slap that bad Larry on there. Tighten up your bolt. This is actually also the only washer in the entire kit is for this. Alright, this is the time in our little tutorial where you put your belt on. If I can get the twists out of the belt. There we go. So the belt routing is fairly simple. It's kind of stock LS-ish. You just got to pull that down and get that over that first. There we go, because that does touch that when there's no tension on it. Around the water pulley, around those two, and then you give her a little bit of encouragement. Actually, want to go around the smooth pulley last, so we're going to change that order up. And I just screwed myself. Hold on. I'll be right back to our regularly scheduled programming. All right, make sure you're on all your ribs and everything, and then slide it on. And there is your belt routing. Next, we're going to put our appearance cover on the tensioner. Alright, for this appearance cover, you get your cover, you get 2 small Allen bolts, and your rear bracket. So the way this installs is your rear bracket locates on your 1/2" input as well as your cover. So this thing will slide behind here. I know it doesn't look like it's going to work, but here you go. Then your cover goes over. You put in your bolt. You get that started. And then same thing with the bottom one. And we're in. So then you just finish tighten these. I'm actually going to pull these back off and put a dab of Loctite on them. Probably, I forget which color is not the permanent Loctite, because you will have to take this off again if you ever have to change the belt or water pump or do anything where the belt needs to be removed. But that is your appearance cover. Okay, there's only 2 really small things left to do. So you're going to take off your sealer plate for your compressor. What you want to do is, yep, see this one, the O-ring came out with it. So remove this O-ring from here, pop it back on there, and then you're going to grab your nice shiny billet manifold, which is right here. You're going to drop your bolt first though, which I'm going to pick up now. And then this bolts right in place where that plate was. Once again, 6mm Allen. Basically 6, 8, and I think it's 4 are what you're used in here. And all the other bolts are 13. That's it, 13mm actually. So we'll tighten these up. And that concludes your air conditioning section. I will tell you, you're going to want to put a little grease or anti-seize on these when you attach your AC lines, because these will gall extremely easy. And replacing this is no big deal. But if you screw up the inside of your AC lines, then you're in a little bit of a world of hurt. And then the final piece of the puzzle is to install your turn-on for your alternator. So, like normal, this will run to your battery, to your junction, down to your starter, whichever way you're doing your wiring. This will run to any clean ignition source for 12-volt switched ignition. And that's it. That's all there is for wiring in this system. And with that, we have a finished Holley front runner start to finish installation. Now this takes, I mean, honestly, out of the car, apart, all the room in the world to work on it, no fluids in it or anything. It's a 20-minute job, 25 minutes. In the car, with having to account for fluids, you know, coolant spilling out of the way and then doing all that stuff, give yourself an hour, hour and a half, and you should be able to get this whole thing in. Now, where you get into it taking a little longer is plumbing for your power steering to be connected to your system, for your AC to be connected to your system, and for that steam port to go in wherever you're putting it in. Your heater line should kind of attach where factory-ish is. Oh, I'll also tell you, one trick that they do, or have done, is these bottom ports. If you are in need for an extra spot for a coolant temp sensor, you can put one in either of these ports as well, or vice versa in these two if you're using the bottom ports for your lines. So pretty decent. Like I said, I'm a big fan of these setups. As you can see, it is just barely wider than the head, and if this engine had exhaust manifolds on it, it is narrower than the exhaust manifolds. So it's a very tight form factor package. Super clean, super put together. Comes with literally, like I've showed you, everything you need to install it. The only thing they don't give you is a gallon of coolant to fill back up. We have used these on everything from big block Chevy, small block Chevy, LS, Fords. I love them. They're an awesome, awesome small form factor, great for resto mod type kit. So I hope you enjoyed this little install. I think we're putting this back up in the air now and getting this transmission back in this thing. And if you want to see more on this build, just search through my videos. This is the 68 No Limit Chassis Step Side C10. Until then, I will talk to you guys later.